So I'm going to put 0 0 for the first player. Then for the second player, I'm going to put 1 1. And then you can see over here, right, this is player 2 playing. Okay, and here, in the board as well, we have player 1 and player 2 marked correctly. So that's good. Then from player 1, let's say I want to put 0 and 2. And then from player 2, I want to put 1 and 0. And then from player 1, I would want to put 1 and 2. And then from player 2, I would want to put 0 and 1. And then from player 1, I want to put 2 and 2. And that's how, the game has ended. We have the player 1 who has won the game. So yeah, I mean, this game looks pretty correct to me. The next thing which I want to show is, now once your code is working, it is actually according to what you want. How would you refactor it? So one good thing which we had done is to create another method just to print the board, because we are already, we are calling the method over here. Instead of putting this code over there, we actually created another method whose responsibility is only to print the board. So whenever we create methods, we follow a single responsibility principle, in the sense that every method should only have one single responsibility, and the name should be appropriate the way, the method is supposed to work. So this is going to print the board, and that's exactly what it does. It doesn't do anything else, right? So now, how can we actually modularize or refactor our code in, some other better ways? So we see over here, we have a loop, and this loop is actually running through this entire main method. Okay, so we can't do anything about it. Within it, we are asking for the next move, we are asking for the row, we are asking for the column, and then, we are checking if we are actually wanting to make a move. Now we are always checking, if the move is made or not, and then, we are making the move. So why can't I actually have a method which is going to be called make move? This is going to give the row and column of the move which we want to make, and it's actually going to pass, the current board which we have. So it's going to take the board, it's going to take the row and column, and all this thing which we are doing, it's actually going to do that within this make move. So let's try to take this if else from here, and in fact, the entire thing. But if I want to take the entire thing, as you can see over here, we are setting the winner, and this winner is going to be changed of this particular class, because it is a static asset. So we need not worry about anything. Let's try to actually take this whole thing outside this particular loop and paste it over here. Once we do this, let's try to run this, if we land into any trouble or not. We do see some trouble over here. We see that we are actually continuing to some place, but we actually are not continuing over here, because the while loop is actually over here, right? It's just making the move. So instead of continue, what I can say is it's going to return 0. And this should just, display that the move was not successful. And if the move was successful, then we would simply return a 1. Now here there is some error coming just because we have not returned an integer. Instead we are returning a void. So we would return an integer over here, and then we would always check, if it is equal to 0, that means, the move was not successful. So we will check if this move is equal to 0, then we will continue. Else, we do not have to worry. The move has happened and the winner would be declared. So we need not worry about that. So now this method is actually checking whether the move is correct or not. It is telling the user that, the place is already marked, choose another position, and then, the loop will continue. If the move is done, then we are calling the print board, which is good. And then we are actually checking the winner, right? So this whole code of checking the winner can also be put in another method, which can be called as check winner. Now, every time we are checking the winner based on the board situation, right? So we are going to pass the board again to check who the winner is and whoever is, the current player. Now, how are we changing the player? We are changing the player over here. So over here, let's pass on, who the current player is and if this particular player is the winner or not. So we are going to create this new method of check winner, and then we are actually going to put all of our code till here. We are going to actually cut it, and then we are going to paste it over here. So what this check winner is doing, it's actually taking the board and it's actually taking the player and it's going to check. So now here row and column is also something which we have to pass on. So from here we can just take the row and column, right? So we'll just pass the row, the current column, and then we are going to add these parameters over here as well. So this is how the winner could be checked. Now the winner may change or may not change, and this else is actually left over here just because we have an if over here. We do declare that the game has ended. So what we can do is we can return a 1 from here because we already checked who the winner is and we actually got a winner. So this should return an int. But let's say if there is no winner, so we would return a 1 over here, else a 0. So again, if check winner is equal to 1, then we know that we have a winner. But if it is equal to 0, because here it's returning a 0, if there is no winner, then we would want to toggle the player. So that's what we are going to do over here. So now we have our check winner method over here, properly modularized. What do I mean by modularized? It actually means that, you are breaking your code down to smaller sections which can be reused again and again, by any other method if they want to use it. Also, it makes your program more understandable. You know that, okay, now the board is getting printed. Now the winner is being checked. And now what this code is doing, this code is toggling between the two players. So we can actually also have another method just to toggle the players, because it may be that, in another instance, we would want to actually change the player. So I will say this is going to be toggle player. And then, I'm going to pass the current player so that the player is changed now. So we will create this over here, take this entire code from here, put this code over here. And instead of player 2, now we just need a player. So this has actually changed the player to 1. And now, hopefully the player is actually changed it is static, right? So it is for this particular class. Since it is for this particular class, it is going to change and it's going to work properly. So now can you see how easy your code has become to be understandable? So you have your main. While winner is equal to 0, meaning that the game is still on, we would tell the next player to do the next move. Then the player would input row and column, and then we would call the make move. Within the make move, we are first checking if the move is valid, so the place is valid. If yes, then we are making the move, else we are actually saying that it is marked. And then we are printing the board, checking the winner, and then toggling the player, and then returning 1 if the move is correct. And this is how we would have a good way of writing down this particular code. Another thing which we can also do is, while we are making a move, we can actually first check move valid. This is also a method which we can call to just check if the move is valid and then make the move. What this would do is, it was just going to check if the board is equal to board row and column is equal to 0. If yes, then it should do this thing. So why we would do this? Because it just has a small thing, right? But we would still do it just because it makes our code very, very understandable. Okay, so if check move valid equal to true, then we would want to do something. So I'll just cut this part, and this method is not defined, so I just added it, and it automatically says that it is supposed to return boolean, and that's why this would say true. Now here is where I would want to check if board row col equal to 0, then I'm going to return true, else I'm going to return false. So we don't have to actually write else. If it is returning true, then as soon as it returns something, it's actually going to end, right? So the reason that this thing has not yet executed, that means the if condition is not valid, so it will automatically return false. We don't have to write an else over here. Now we have a red mark on row and column, so we have to actually pass the row and column over here, because we defined the row and column by passing this over here. So we need to pass this row and column, so we'll just do this, pass the row and column, and then add those arguments over here, in row, in column, and that's fine. So over here again, we don't have to actually pass the board and the player, just because the board and the player are both the instance variables, so we don't have to worry about this. We would remove the parameters from there as well. So let's see if we can make any other change to make our program better. Again, we pass the board over here. We don't need to pass the board, because the board is something which is present of the particular class. So this is just going to print the board for us. Now again, we are passing the board in make move. We don't need to do that. Similarly, we would just remove this argument from here. And over here as well, while we are toggling the player, we need not pass the player. It's actually going to change the player, which is the instance variable of this particular class. So we'll remove the player from here. So we just have the main has args. We just have row and column over here, here, and that's it. So let's try to run this program if it really works properly as before. So we'll make our first move, then the player 2 will make the next move, then player 1 will make the next move, then player 2. So now let's make a move to 2, 0. And then 2, 0, 2, and now we can just put it anywhere. So this is the way we would actually do some testing, by actually changing our inputs and trying the various ways in which we can probably catch any error, any logical issue in our program, whether it's there or not. So I would just put 1 and 2. So now we have it over here, and then I'm going to also, for the player to put it at 0, 1, and then finally we just have the last thing left. It says that the place is already marked, so we again the player 2 is supposed to give the next move. So I want to give for 1 and 0, so here, and then finally we just have one position left. It's going to be 2 and 1, and then finally we do have a winner over here. So yeah, I mean we actually completed the game, and then we do have a winner. But what if sometimes the game has a draw and we never get a winner? In that case, we need to check if the entire board is completely full or not, and then we would never be able to make any new move, right? So that's where we really need to check. If the board is full, then the game is definitely going to be over. So there are two ways in which we can do this. One is to actually we check the winner. We check if the board is completely full or not. Let's say we do not get a winner over here. We are in the else part. So here we can actually check whether this board is full or not. Or what we can do is we can count the number of moves, how many moves happened. If the number of moves is already 3 by 3, which is 9, then we know that the board is full. So now when we are actually making the move, so we check whether the move is valid. Yes, the move is valid. Then we are making a move over here, right? So now while we are actually making the move, we can actually increment the move count. So what we can do is we can say that move count plus plus. Needless to say that, we actually have to create a move count over here. So we have int move count equal to 0. And now, we really want to check how many moves happened. So this move count is actually something which relates to board also, right? So we can simply get it out, make it a static variable, how many moves happened in this particular game. So initially the move count is 0, but every time we do make a move, which is over here, our move count is going to increment. And whenever we check the winner, if the move count is 9, then do not toggle the player, just end the game. That's what I want. So if the check winner is equal to 0, then toggle player ends, else we are returning 1. So over here we can actually specify that the game also has ended. So if we have, a long program, and if we want to keep checking a particular method, what we do is just press on Control on your keyboard, and then you can see that, you are able to click on the name of the method to go to the definition over here. So now when you see the check winner over here, you would check if the winner is the player or not. But when we are at else, we would return 0. But before that, we would just say that all moves exhausted, the game has ended, and is a draw. So none of the players won, it's just a draw. Okay, and this output should not be present, every time, right? It should not be present every time. It should only be present if the move count is equal to 3 into 3, because that's our board, right? If it is equal to 3 into 3, then this is going to be displayed. Otherwise, we are just going to return 0. And what we really need is that now our while loop should not continue. So this make move should not be equal to 0, right? So in that case, we would return a 1. So in this case, we would return a 1. Now really, if you think that the move count is equal to 9, and it says that, all moves are exhausted, and it returns a 1. But where does it return a 1? It returns a 1 over here. And if it returns a 1 over here, it is simply going to continue the while loop. We don't want that, right? So we should return another code, and that should be equal to 2. So I just chose 2 because we would just check, if it is equal to 2, then it means that the game has ended. So instead of actually calculating again and again, we would just get a winner status, which is going to be check winner with this particular row and column. And then we will check, if the winner status is equal to 0, then we would toggle player, because now, the winner is still equal to 0. Else, if, the winner status is 2, then what would happen? Then we don't want to toggle the player. Instead, we just want to print what we were printing over here. So instead of printing this over here, let's cut this from here. Here we are just, going to return true, just because our move count has already reached at the position 9. And we are just going to print this. So now, as you can see, that we have first checked whether there is a winner or not, and then we have returned a 1. It will simply return a 1 and give you the winner. But if it does not return a 1, then what will happen? It will either return a true or a 0. If the number of moves are completed, it will return a true, or it is simply going to return a 0, right? So based on 2 and based on 0, then we are going to actually work on whether to continue the game or whether to just declare the moves are exhausted. So here again, the winner status is something which we are checking over here. But then what about make move? Make move is either returning 0 or returning 1, and it's definitely going to continue if make move is equal to 0, right? So that's not exactly what we wanted. We actually wanted to do this thing, in fact, over here. So again, we are going to return 2 over here, and similarly we would check if the move return 0, we would continue. Else, if make move, it actually returns 2. Then what? Then we would print this. So can you see how I'm actually changing the positions where I'm wanting to print where the game has ended? And this is how logically you can keep improving your program. And instead of continuing this loop, you're just going to break this loop. That's it. You are going to break this loop at this point of time. So now this else is actually supposed to come over here. Yes. So now let's check this again. While winner is equal to 0, we are outputting the player to give in a move. When we actually try to make a move and it is equal to 0, that means the move is not valid. Then we continue. If it is not equal to 0, then we check, is it really equal to 2? Because then, the game has indeed ended, and then we would break. But if the game has not ended and it is equal to 1, then we know that we have toggled the player over here. So let's try to actually run this and check, if whatever we did not run into any issues and whatever we have wanting to achieve is achieved or not. So let me clear this console and let me run this. Again, we'll try to actually get in a particular situation in which the tic-tac-toe is a draw and not somebody winning the game. So the first move by the player, let me just put it in the first row and the second column. So this is where I want, and then for the player. So now as you can see, there is some issue. The place is already marked, it says, and it is asking for the player 2. So there is one issue which I see over here. Let's try to go ahead and see how this issue is something which we are going to tackle later on. But now I am going to put my next move by the player 2, which is going to be 0 0, and then again it gives this message. That means that there is some issue with our code. How there may be something which we did which actually caused the issue. But let's actually go ahead and try to give the next input by player 1, which is going to be 1 and 1. Then for player 2, I would give 2 and 1, and then for player 1 I want to give 1 and 2. Then for the player 2 I would give 0 and 2. Then for the player 1 I would give 2 and 2, and then for player 2 I would give 1 and 0, and then finally for the player 1 again I would give 2 and 0. So now as you can see, this game is a draw. Nobody won over here, and now it says player 1 give your next move, input the next move. And here we did not want this, right? We did not want this. We wanted this to be executed. All moves are exhausted, the game has ended, and this did not happen. That means we have to really check for both the issues, why the space is already marked is coming, and why this print is not happening over here. So let's try to look into this. I'm just terminating the program over here.